This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, here we are. It's the last official live show we do this year on this literally New Year's Eve. And what we're going to be doing is it's really a recap because I have talked about this item of what is success, what constitutes success, and how does it integrate with your game plan of what you are all about. So on AuthorU-Your Guide to Book Publishing today, Julie Schoerke is going to join me, and I love working with Julie. We've worked together with several projects. She is the visionary and the founder of JKS Communications and specializes in literary publicity for authors. And as I said, several of our authors have worked with her. And it's really been fun. It's quite fun on the journey. So I do want to get into really what's the difference between a publicist and a literary publicist. That's important. But let's start with success. And a lot of times that when I sit down with a book shepherding client, for the first time, I will ask them, what is success to them? Is it being called by Fox News or CNN? Is it getting a call from Today, GMA, or, Ellen? Is it having your name, your photo, your book plastered across the feature section of the newspaper? Is it getting a call where you have someone says, oh my God, we have to bring you in to do our keynote presentation and our budget is only $5,000. Will that work with your fee? What is success? Or is it just finishing the book? Yesterday, I had a new client in, and he came in with he was a pioneer, a visionary in the long-term care field. And he sold his business, recently retired, and he had put together quite a tome. And it's what we call narrative nonfiction. It's his memoir. And as I sat and talked to him, I thought, holy moly, I do have a pioneer in front of me. And I have done with my healthcare background, where I spoke for over 20 years to the healthcare related industries. I knew that this guy was a game changer and a player. And it was a lot of executive teams that would chomp at the bit to get him in front of them, especially with the aging population. So we re-strategized here, and I ended up doing an option 1 and option 2 for what we could do in creating his book, which he was originally thinking of as just what we call a legacy book. Legacy books are for family and friends. You might have 100 copies. And it would be lovely, but the reality is he had so many meaty, chewy, groundbreaking morsels that he had done through his years of work that I knew, because of my own background, that people would pay a lot of money. And getting money wasn't his version of successful for him. That he didn't need that on that. In fact, he planned on just donating anything to groups. So if he did speak. So we ended up morphing and going along the line that we're actually going to create a commercial book that he can do those giveaways and come in and work with groups because it's still within his budget. So it comes back to what Julie and I are going to focus on today, which is what's success, what constitutes it, how do you integrate it, how do you keep yourself in balance, how do you keep away from becoming what I call getting AFS, author fatigue syndrome. So with that, Julie, let's jump into this. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, Judith.
Yeah, well, we've done this before, so we're back again. And also, Julie, I think this is, the last day of the year. This is a good idea to do kind of a lessons learned. What are some of the lessons? What are some of the hiccups that you saw that actually got in the way of your client's success? And I think that's always important.
Well, I think that it's the number one thing for authors just that I talk to on a daily basis is exactly what our topic is, and that is defining what success is in a realistic way. Having reach goals, but at the same time having realistic goals and figuring out step by step how to attain those goals. And I was in a bank yesterday, and a woman knew what I did. I mentioned what I did for a living, and she said, "Well, I'm going to write a book so I can become rich." And I said, "No, I wouldn't write a book to become rich. That's not why you write a book." And it's interesting to me how many people. There was a very, very, very successful political operative that made tens of millions of dollars from a major national political campaign a few years ago, and he came to me and said that he wanted to write a children's book so that he could bump up his 401k or his 401k and get more money for retirement. And I said, well, I would keep doing exactly what you're doing to make more money. If you're making tens of millions of dollars, children's books don't bring in that kind of money. And so I think that if, and sometimes I talk to people who are extremely realistic about what their goals are and why they wrote the book and what they want to accomplish as a result. And it is interesting. I've very rarely had people, I've talked to more than 600 authors, and I've rarely had more than, or we've worked with more than 600 authors, and we've rarely had more than one or two that have the same goal. Almost everybody actually has a different goal once you dig into it and figure out what they want.
Mm-hmm. Which is really important. So that's really it's like Julie, when I start out with a new client, I literally have a game plan model that I put, and we all work on it together, and I go through each component of bringing that together and try to do a reality check with them. And I think what's really important, you just said something that it really, for children, any book. Let's start with any book. If you were signed with New York, if you had a traditional publishing contract, what y'all need to know is that most likely you're going to be called what we call a mid-list author. Would that be safe to say, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, you're mid-list. You're not John Grisham. You're not David Baldacci. You're not Danielle Steele. You're not, Dan Brown. You're not a major. They're going to run a gazillion copies off it. You're a toe in the water. And actually, it's often the mid-list people that carry publishing houses. It's that little bit. It's like, save a little bit a day, and it adds up over the period of time. Years ago, when I was in financial planning, and I'm talking 40 years ago, that and I had my own firm, that it was ironic that the people who had the most money over a period of time were my school teachers, and they had just they put by their $100 a month every month, $200 a month every month, and it mounted up. So those books that get sold, those mid-list books, and by the way, what's the average mid-list book sale lifetime? 5,000 copies. If you have a trade paper book, that 5,000 copies in royalties from a traditional publisher is only going to cough up a few $1,000s. Get this, hear this clearly. You are not going to break the bank signing with New York, all right? I just want to get that on the table. So be realistic here. And I always tell my authors, unless you have deep pockets, unless you've got a trust fund behind you, unless you've got someone who's a sugar something in your camp, and that could be you, that you don't quit the day job. You don't quit the day job. You're going to have these things to support it. But what you also need to understand, and now this adds on the success arena, that if you are going to have the I get it that I'm not going to make $1 gazillion, then you say, so what is it I'm going to be doing with this? So it's a reality check, the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that is really, really important. And if you hit 5,000, you actually are doing incredibly well. And mid-list authors are signed up, and they're given a modest advance, but they're thrown out there not knowing that the publishing house doesn't know whether it's going to be a hit or not. The lead title is the one that gets all the money and all the hoopla. And I was talking to an owner of a Major League Baseball team a couple of weeks ago, and he was thinking about writing a book. And then I compared baseball with becoming an author, and it clicked. You could see in his eyes that, there are lots of kids who play Little League baseball, and then there are fewer kids that play in high school, and they're getting better, and then there are much fewer that play in college, and then for the farm teams, much smaller. And by the time you get to the big leagues, you've cut out many, many, many of the people, a huge percentage of baseball players. And so it's the same thing in the book industry. To end up being a brand name that everybody recognizes means that there are literally millions of authors that have not made it that far, just like in baseball.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't become a major player in your niche and in your genre. I certainly did that. I sold over 1 million books. I never was on the New York Times. 95% of my books were sold where people heard me speak and they wanted to take me home. And so there's some real strategies that we can put together. It is much easier, everyone, listen in. This is going to be one of your mottos coming into 2016. It is much easier to learn how to become the whale in the pond versus the sardine in the sea. And what Julie's talking about is that when you are on that baseball team, you are the sardine. So with that, we're going to take a big break. We'll come back and let's support our sponsors. We have wonderful sponsors, and we will get it all together here and really move into success and how you can claim your share of it.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Sellinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so as we wrap up this year with Julie Schoerke, who is the principal of JKS Communications, a literary publicist firm who I had the pleasure of working with several times, and will be joining us. I need to woot out here. She will be joining us as one of our regular sponsors, so you'll be hearing about Julie and her team on every show from now on, starting in January. But we're talking about success. So what constitutes success? And so I want really all of you listening in right now is to really write down, take a sentence. What is success to you? Is it name in the paper? Is it being called by the media? Is it making a bunch of money? Is it just getting the book out? Which, by the way, constitutes success in my opinion. But and hopefully it's a book of merit, please. And you do that. So what does it look like to you? That's really important. And by the way, if it's being featured on a major TV show, you know what? I'd take your picture. I'd put your book. I'd put it up on the wall. I'd look at that and remind myself that's a goal I'm going for. So the other part of that is I think that whatever you define success is, it's critical to start jotting down, get it in writing, get it visual so that you can determine steps that will lead you toward that goal. And I'm really firm. You've got to write it down. You've got to articulate it. You've got to say it. You've got to be, my theme for AuthorU this year, by the way, is to dare greatly. Be a doer, not a dreamer. Too many of us dream. You got to be the doer. What are the steps to get you there? Anything you want to add to that, Julie?
Oh, I think that's I love that. That's a wonderful wonderful thing, and I just jotted it down because that I agree. I'd love to say that to authors. I would say that just as in so many negotiations throughout your life in business or personally, think about what are your reach goals. What is it that you'd really love? Yes, of course you'd love the New York Times bestseller list, and put that down because there are people that hit the New York Times bestseller list. But as you said, Judith, I think that you need to figure out what steps to get there and really realistic steps, and also think about if you want to sell 10,000 books, then figure out how are you going to sell the first 100. You know, make your goals bite-sized so that you can figure out exactly how to get where you want to go. And, you know, I think that people should honor the accomplishments of everybody wants a huge trade publication review. And many people get that. But also a blog review or a review in a small newspaper, that's really important. And I think that authors should take the time to sit back, breathe, and take in that success that they've just made. And you know, every time that you're invited to a book club, that's a big success. I would set goals to talk to book clubs. And being an author is so similar to being a cross between a politician and a small business owner, because you have to believe in your product more than anybody else, and you need to build a team around you that's going to be supportive of that. And then you also need to understand that it takes a touch every single time that you go out and touch people. Then most likely you're going to become their favorite author. If you're a likable person, then these people are going to want to read your book. And as more books come out in the United States and fewer people read, that doesn't mean that it's not possible to get people to read your book, but you have to understand that every year you have to do more to promote your book than the authors did the year before in order to make a dent in your goals. But I think that it's really important to say, I want a New York Times bestseller, but I'm going to have a launch event at my bookstore locally, and I want to see if I can hit the local bookstore bestseller list, and then from there grow it. And savor those moments, because they're important moments and they're big moments. And when you consider all the people that are in the business, you should be so proud of the fact that you do have a book and that it's being read by people, because how many people in the world actually create something that so many other people that they don't know are impacted by it other than authors? It's not that common. What you're doing is really significant, and it will live on beyond your own lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Years ago, when I had a breakout book called Woman to Woman from Sabotage to Support. It was based really on my doctorate work the underlying theme was ethics, and it was, do women undermine other women? And the answer was yes. And and that launched into other stuff. And that book, by the way, was rejected by every major New York publisher, 28 rejections. I saved the letters for a long time. And that because it just really scared them. And what I didn't realize, I had written something that when they read it, they looked in the mirror. It was primarily a female-dominated environment. It still is. There was so much backstabbing going on. And, I didn't see that, not in publishing. And of course, that evolved into multiple other books, created a very successful career that evolved me into healthcare, female-dominated. And I was the expert in a toxic workplace. And that I remember that went on and from the publicity and success. I being on the New York Times was a goal, but it was a dream, and I didn't know how to do it. But I remember that book became, the year it came out, it became the Chicago Tribune's Business Book of the Year. I took more pride out of that, Julie, because the Chicago Tribune was a hot paper. And that I took more pride out of that. And I was able to parlay that little sucker to a 4-page spread that I pitched in People magazine that took me from everywhere, from the Wall Street Journal to the National Gulp Inquirer, and everything in between. I never hit the New York Times because it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the positioning it did. Because one of my goals in the steps to success was to be a sought-after speaker based on my books. And that's what was achieved. So I think that we also have to look as redefining what our goals are, because maybe there's more of a dreaming in there that might not be realistic. There's other ways, other avenues to hit things.
Well, and it's very possible as an indie author to sell huge numbers of books and never hit the New York Times bestseller list, as you pointed out, because the New York Times takes their data from specific bookstores, and there's a specific algorithm, and they're always changing it up so that people can't game the system. And so I met a man who wrote a book that he had been selling at the back of the room during his talks, and it was never even on Amazon, and he sold more than 100,000 copies. And that's, I mean, a publisher would be thrilled with 100,000 copies.
They would be doing a happy dance. And then here, if I was an author, I am an author. If I was one of the things let me just pretend, y'all are a client of mine, that I would be advising you to really seek out the independent bookstores. And that I want you to get to know, and one of the sources I would go to is IndieBound, IndieBound.org, where you can put in, just start local, you can put in your zip code and you'll find out all the independent bookstores. Go befriend them, and here's what. They don't have hangouts hang-ups, let me say that, hang-ups about saying you have to be listed with Baker & Taylor or a major distributor. They don't have a problem ordering directly from the publisher. And smart, savvy author that you are, when you created your independent, and I want you to stop saying I'm self-published, for God's sakes. You are honored to be published by an independent press. Get that through your brain here. And that specializes in your genre and works closely with the author. Now, just because you're the author, they're not going to care, but they will order directly from you. Same terms. And you start, pushing business to them. Let me tell you, the indies chat amongst themselves, and they will support you. And you could have, if bookstores are being in a bookstore is on your success list, that's the way I would recommend that you go about doing it. And
I agree with you. And there are a couple things I would add to that. I would say there's so many authors that want to get into bookstores and think, what can you do for me? And if you cultivate a real relationship with an indie bookstore as an indie author, that will make a huge difference. If you show up to the events that they have and they see you in there supporting the other authors and buying books, that is going to mean so much to them than if you come in and to their bookstore and say, I live 2 blocks away, you don't know me, but I've got a book coming. Start cultivating those relationships now and make them authentic.
Yes, and show up with food, by the way. Take them donuts. Or take the staff. And you know what? Even ask if you could come in and do a show and tell with the staff and let them know about your book. Do you have any idea how Susie Orman started? She was with this publisher, New York publisher, and, she'd go out. Here's a typical nobody shows up. The average book signing is 4 to 6 books, by the way. You get sold 4 to 6 books. And so what she did is she started sitting down with the staff and said, hey, can I help you with your financial needs? And then they started talking her up. Relationships. They're the gold of moving forward. And the indie bookstores could be your best friends. Not to mention, all the other ways. I'm a big believer. I believe that Dan Poynter used to say the bookstores are a crappy place to sell books. You can do so many other things. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Julie Schoerke is our guest today. We're talking about author success, some strategies to do, and I want to get into some things some of the hiccups that she ran into on the publicity side with a lot of her authors this past year.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
One of the great outcomes of really sitting down and noodling what success looks like to you is that when it comes, you'll recognize it. If you haven't kind of played around with it, it may be squarely looking you in the face, and you don't realize you landed. So I'm just, really spend the time. This is a good day to do it. Good time of the year to really transition from being the dreamer to the doer. However, that doing needs to be done to get there. So, Julie, you've worked with a lot of authors this past year, and a variety of genres, correct?
Oh, yes, a huge variety, and that's what we like. We enjoy doing fiction. We enjoy doing nonfiction, and if you write a nonfiction book, there are more hooks. But our fiction authors are just as passionate. And a lot of times there's a higher truth if once you read the book, there's a bigger reality to it, and they're couching it in a way that's, especially for young adults, that's possible for them to internalize.
Mm-hmm. Earlier this week I was I loved watching it at the Kennedy Center, where they're honorees for this year, and George Lucas was one of them. Carole King was also another one. And that the visionary, Lucas was an amazing visionary of what he created over these decades. And that for a fiction author, I'm always amazed with fiction authors because they always say, I can't get any publicity. A lot of them are so deep ingrained in research for their novels that they forget that they have expertise in locations, in geography, in situations. I'm always amazed when 9/11 hit, who was all over the air? Tom Clancy, because he knew about treason and those kind of disasters that came along with it. And he was touted as the expert. And I think that people who do write fiction, I don't have the gift to come up with some of the off-the-wall ideas that some of these fiction authors do. But they need to pat themselves on the back and learn that they can hook that into and say, put themselves as a visionary, as someone who prophesized this coming and how it ties in with the book. And you never know what you can hook in. What were some of the hooks that you've done with fiction?
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. And I was going to say, one of the great things about working with people who are former journalists, virtually everybody in our company is a former journalist, they understand from the other side of the desk what they need for the audience to be interested. And what you have to understand when you're an author is that you are supposed to go on a television show or a radio show to entertain so that the sponsors will stay engaged and will continue to support the radio station or the television station. And so So that's one of the things that you have to really think about. And if you have a hard time finding a hook, that's one of the things that professionals do for you is they try to find a hook for you. And we've never worked with an author that wanted to be on television that did not end up on television. Every one of our authors that wanted to be on TV were, and some of them we had to talk them into doing it, and then they really enjoyed it. And so I think that you're absolutely right, Judith, that the hooks can be your expertise. It can also be if it's written about family dysfunction, for example, then if you happen to be a family therapist, like Jenny Milchman's one of our authors, and she used to be a family therapist, and she writes these mind-bending mysteries that show the dysfunction in different characters, and she can really talk about that aspect of it. You also, if you set a book in, we've got an author, Gary Slaughter, who set a fiction book in Michigan where he grew up. He's an indie published author, and many of he's got 4 books, and several of those books have been picked up by universities and high schools in Michigan to be taught in their history classes. And he uses his personal experiences of growing up in Michigan, and he specifically looks at selling books in Nashville, Tennessee, where he lives, and Michigan, where he writes. And so I think that sometimes if you look at those aspects, just as you were saying, Judith, of, what do you have to offer? What universities did you go to? Can you get something in your local alumni magazine about your book? Nobody's going to be happier for you besides your family and friends than people that you went to school with and see that you've been successful and that you've published a book. And use those kind of hooks. And then sometimes it's purely the genre. I was really surprised a few years ago when the witches and vampires were so big, and we got several authors on television talking about simply their book because it was really entertaining. And we work with an author, Clay Stafford, who is really entertaining, really funny and fun, and he is always invited back at the end of his interviews because he so entertains the audience. And so if you can do that and entertain the audience, you'll be invited back. You don't have to stuff the information about your book down the throat of the interviewer. You can simply talk about the topics that they want to, but be lively when you do it, and be funny and fun, or bring statistics to the table that you can use that through your research, that kind of thing, because you want to be entertaining for the news outlets, since so much of news now is all about entertainment.
Always. And also, here the other side is that I'm telling authors, if for any type of publicity you're trying to get, any type of placement position, that there's 2 things you must, and it always blows me away that they can't pinpoint it. You must know who your ideal reader, listener, viewer is. Who are you reaching out to? You got to know that. The second thing is you got to know what their frickin' pain is, because you as the and fiction people relieve the pain of, I just need to be entertained. I need to be dropped out. Okay, that's your therapy solution. For the nonfiction people, you've got a myriad of things that you are easing, solving, giving options to. You got to know.
Well, you're right. I mean, Judith,
and what the pain is.
That. I was thinking about Jamie Rodman's amazing book that you did, The Las Vegas Madam, and I think about all the different angles and all the different things that she wrote about, and how the media just wanted more and more and more of her because she was able to talk about sexuality from a sociological perspective. And she was amazing she is amazing at being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. And so other options went along with that book too, which was a dicey book to work on. But I never imagined myself working on that book, but by God, I did.
Well, we didn't either, but it's interesting because we have authors that have sold hundreds of thousands of copies of books, and there was not nearly the media frenzy to get to them that there was to her, because she wrote about a subject that people are really curious about and has, quote unquote, some entertainment value. So I think that she's a brilliant example this year of someone who has written about a topic that people really want to know about, and the people who she knew who her audience was. She was able to articulate that. Judith, I know that you two worked on that for a long time. But when somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, this book is for everybody," then I say it better not be for everybody, because it'll be for nobody. Yeah. Yeah. You really, really have to figure out, is this for men? Is it for women? What age group? What kind of person? And go after that group. It's great if it morphs and everybody reads it like John Grisham's books. But you need to really identify your audience and get those people who are going to read it and get passionate about it and talk about it behind you.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what has to go. So it's as soon as you get into finding out knowing who it is, that it'll make all the difference in the world. I mean, I'm not kidding. And it'll ease it for you, especially if you get stuck, that you can just look up over your laptop or gaze in the wall, dream, and visualize who that ideal viewer, listener, reader is. It'll help refocus you, get you unstuck. Trust me, it works. All right. So, what are some of the bugaboos? I mean, we're going to take a break here in another minute, but let's start on some of the bugaboos that you see could be easily corrected from authors that jumped in. Besides not being distinct, knowing who their target is, which is what you need to know, also to help do the pitching.
Oh yes, we determine that. We give authors a very long and exhaustive author questionnaire in addition to reading their book, so that we can get a real sense of who they are and who their demographic is and where their sphere of influence is, because you need to use that sphere of influence no matter what it is. You need to start collecting those emails. I'd say the biggest bugaboo, and it breaks my heart when people come to me and say, I already have a book out, because there's so much that we can do if we have that lead time of 4 months up to the release of the book, and being able to let the media know and let the tastemakers know that this book is coming. And that's the number one issue, I think, is that authors write the book. They worry about getting it created and printed, and then they worry about the promotion of it. But
there's a way to handle that. Yeah, there's a way to handle that. Let's come back to that, and we'll open on that. This is Judith Briles. It's AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. Julie Schoerke is my guest today.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today. 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207. Or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Okay, so I told Julie with JKS Book and Author Publicity that based in Tennessee, by the way, that there are some things that you can do. So what most of the authors, the self and the indie authors, do is they put so much energy into getting the book done. And I get that. Ideally, what we'd like you to do is, to parallel think of marketing, pre-marketing, pre-launching, and all that. And, you do have AFS, offer fatigue syndrome. I get that. I do get that. So here's what you can do. If you can be patient here, is you've got your books in hand, shipments coming in, you've got a fulfillment house set up to handle Amazon, and if you need help with any of that, certainly email me because I've got an excellent contact at judith@briles.com that you then can come about and just say, okay, Julie said, ideally we have 4 months to do the setup with the type of reviews we need, to start the buzz starting, etc. Well, take the 4 months. Okay, so let's say tomorrow is January 1st. And let's say, okay, I want to have my launch at the end of April. All right? Is that a good time frame, Julie?
Yes.
March, April.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say I'm going to shoot. April is not April Fool's Day; it's April Book Day, and I'm gonna push towards that. So you've got books in hand. You are working with a publicist like Julie, and that you are they can now seed it into the specific feeders that would be appropriate for your book. If it's for parenting, or if it's for fiction, or if it's for business or erotica, I mean, who knows? But it can get fed into their system of who the right contacts are, and reviewers, if it's appropriate, that we can go out and you get that buzz going. Meanwhile, if family and friends want to buy it, they certainly can. But better yet is if you get a few out there, have them prepare reviews that when you are live on Amazon, they can go and drop them all in. Because the reviews on Amazon, Goodreads, Shelfari are critical for your success. They're critical for your success. People pay attention, and that you're not going to be able to put them up until you have a live page on Amazon. And what Julie's
thing you have to be careful of now that has just happened in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Amazon is really, really cracking down on the friends and family reviews, and so have your friends and family that have read it review it if they have a different last name than you do, because you don't want Amazon to start coming in and pulling your reviews down, and you don't want red flags. So you want to be sure that you get as many reviews as possible. But a lot of Amazon is also moving toward reviews that they tag the reviews as better that have been purchased. The book has been purchased on Amazon, so it's called verified.
Yeah, I know for my clients, I always order a book off of Amazon. So, and I will go up and put a review on. But one of the important things is reviews need to come from different computers. The IP, the robots track everything. Also, that it's better that they don't all come on the same day. I don't want them to say, my sister wrote this book. No. And you need to have variations. If they all start looking alike, then this exact wording, they get yanked. The robots will yank them down in it. But if you can get 35 reviews, they start paying attention. When you get up to 100 plus, they start cross-promoting, and they even might be doing ads for you and putting them out. And I've seen that happen for several of our clients. So, take advantage of this on that, but be smart on it and start stockpiling them. And the other thing for Amazon is that when you see reviews going up, I mean, you start, especially when you're in your launch period, you're on so multiple times, copy every review and drop it on your website. Because if the robots do decide to delete it, and they can go back a week later and yank them off, by the way, there's nothing sacred with Amazon, except for making money, that they can pull them down. So copy and save and use them on your website. Shout out about it. Post it on your Facebook page. I'm honored to get this review from, Susie and whatever. You don't know who it is. But go ahead and keep shouting out, because that's the way you help support the buzz.
That's absolutely true. That's a great way to use social media, and exactly those words that you used. It makes you sound very gracious if you say, "I'm honored to get this. I was so pleased. This made my day." Rather than, "I have the best book," and then posting a review, and a few words. But I would tweet it. I'd put it on Facebook, Instagram. I would get it out there as far as you can. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, push it. And I had the goofiest thing show up on my doorstep. Just before Christmas. It was a hoot, and it was Yoda Santa. And I took my husband said, "Have you been out on the front porch?" And I said, "No." And he says, "I think you need to go out and look on that front porch." And I have no idea who brought me Yoda Santa, but he is 1.5 feet tall, and it is Yoda Santa. And I took a picture. As I had more, it made my day. It made my day. Had more fun with it. All right. So what are some of the other tips? We're in our last segment here, and we only have a couple of minutes to go. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, just to clarify a little bit about the launch, when you work with a publicist for releasing your book or launching your book or some kind of a marketer, then the release date can be tied to the ISBN number, and so you can ask them about that and work on that. And as Judith said, you can sell prior to that, and it's a great idea to sell prior. It's one of the great advantages indie authors have is to have soft launches versus hard launches. If you're with a Big 5 publisher in New York, then your book can only be sold on the date of that it's released, but because of antitrust laws. But being an indie author, you can have a soft launch and get the book out to your community, and then you can have a launch date that dovetails with the publicity that you get, and that's what you really want. I know a lot of people are anxious to get their book up on Amazon, but unless you have a way to drive people to Amazon to realize that your book is on there, then that's the big challenge. You want to create an appetite before you put it up there.
So it's the appetizer. So the soft launch would be the appetizer. And then the hard launch would be when we're going all barrels, so to speak, with publicity, and people are doing massive shout outs and those kind of things. And it's all on a concise area. And here's the other great thing, that we haven't even kissed on, but that when you're with a traditional publisher, your book is published on January 7th, whatever the date is. And that's the publishing date. They are not coming back to it. This is the date. They'll pay attention to it for a couple of weeks, and whoever the Emma is, Emma would be the intern of the month when they're pushing out publicity. You have to understand that they are not exclusively dedicated to your book. They may say they are. They have a whole bunch of books they're trying to push at that, and all they want to do is get a hit with somebody, and then they do a happy dance. That it's really different with independent publicists like what Julie does and offers. I mean, they're aggressively concentrating on getting you on XYZ and doing these things. And of course, there's never any guarantees. There's never any guarantees in this stuff. Please
and if
understand
somebody
this.
guarantees you better run.
You better run fast. Yeah. And maybe cancel your credit card if you gave it to them. But that you need to understand that. There's no guarantees when it comes to publicity. But you're going to be the best pitcher and learn how to do this. Get concise, know who your audience is, get that hook in, understand the pain, and have that, and really very quick have tips. One of the other things I'm going to recommend to all of you for your book launches is that create questions, have pre-questions to help out. And also I would put in parentheses how long it takes you to answer them, because you can't believe, especially with podcasts. And don't forget pitching to podcasts. Look them up. What are the top podcasts that would be featuring your types of books? If you will tell them how long it takes you to answer, when they come to the bottom of the hour or the top of the hour and they want to ask one quick question, they will scan down to see how long, if you tell them how long it takes to answer it, it's bingo here. So little tricks out here that might help you in this process. So coming back to when you do the big launch, the hard launch, here's the great thing about the indie market versus traditional. When it's over, it's over. The party's over. You can relaunch your book. You can reboot it. Lessons learned. Okay, so I'm going to come back. I'm going to gussy it up. Maybe something's going on that would be your book is so relevant, so paramount that you can come back and get your team back together again very quickly. A team could be just friends and family. Shout out, start again, and you could get a goose going. So you never know. You never know.
It's a really good point. Yeah, relaunching is an indie's best friend. Yeah.
All right. So, Julie, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, our website is www.jkscommunications.com, or I can be reached at julie@jkscommunications.com.
All right.
And I would love to answer any questions that people have that could be completely random. They may just need a little tidbit, a little bit of information. I'm happy to help.
Perfect. All right. Well, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for being with us, and happy writing and publishing will be with you next year. This is Judith Briles.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week,